Hello and welcome once again to my YouTube channel. In this video we're continuing the story of Belize. Last time it was roughly 2,000 years ago. This time we're going on around 62 years later, around 1938 years ago. So in the last video we spoke about the political situation at that time. Now, as we showed before, that the people of Cerros came under the rule of a king who later expanded his influence around northern Belize. And the mayor in Mesoamerica around Belize, Lower Mexico, Honduras, and Guatemala were basically city-states, right? Some were actually rather democratic, as we find out with Cerros choosing that after coming under the rule of a king and what that entails, because if you upset the king, what would happen is that your life expectancy was not very long indeed, as we will see in this story. This story is about conspirators, right? Normally in history, conspirators are basically ones who are gonna kill the king and take over as rulers or whatever. But these are conspirators who have had enough of kingship. They've had enough of the rule by decree from one man. So what they're doing is they're planning what to do next, right? Because of grievances from said king. Also, in their arguments, some of those arguments, have been throughout history on politics and religion, because for kings to actually rule, they use the religion as an excuse for their royal rule of one man. In the story which has come down, we get the sense of what the ordinary man was thinking at that time. Before I go on, I'd like to thank all my friends and subscribers for joining me again today. And if you like what you hear and you're intrigued about the history of the Mesoamerican man Indians, and you'd like to see more of my videos on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button and hit the bell icon. That will actually let you know when I publish my next episode. So let's continue with our story of the man people of northern Belize. This is the story of Bo Chun, our chief conspirator. So let's begin. Bo Chun said to his friends, "Well, I'm leaving here at the next new moon. How many of you will bring your families and come with me?" Kolkak replied, "I will go with you. It is the month of Mo, December, and we will miss the beekeepers' festival. But I guess it is important to arrive before the rains come over at our new place." "Where have you chosen to go, Bo?" said Tik Zul. Bo answered, "We will move to the far side on the east coast, behind the lagoon, which is Shipstone Lagoon today, along the shore, just back from the inland sea. Anything to get away from this lord and his soldiers. It was okay to volunteer work days for the temple building during the dry season, but making my little brother a slave because he refused to obey the lords and the Ahub and leave his milpa at such a critical time was wrong. I know, Cole replied. When the Narcom tied him to the post and slashed his genitals, that was a bit much. Yes, Poyu said. Count me in for the move. I have no stomach for the way they treat your little brother. Then tore his heart out of his chest for the gods. May the gods strike me dead if I don't believe, but I'm tired of this royal lord and king stuff. Do this and do that all the time. They treat us like dogs and tax us more maize than I can save. My father remembers before we had these temples and appointed a king and nobles, then we voted on a committee and elected a chief every year. It is true that a Narcom served for 3 years, but he was still elected and had to work with the elected council. I, for one, want to go back to the old ways. Everybody having a vote and changing our leaders every year. It is a proper way of doing things. I don't want people telling me what to do. It's okay if they ask my opinion. We vote on it and that's fair. This bunch telling us what to do and ordering us all about, it's not my style. Careful what you say, Paul, said Uncle Chan. They don't think anything of making you a prisoner and sacrificing you to shut you up. Cal looked around at his companions to see if any would betray them to the Lord of Cerros. Bo stood up, stretching his arms, said, So, how many of you will come with me at the new moon, bringing your families and tools? We'll start a new village on the coast, far away from this bunch of fools, and go back to the old ways of doing things. Bo hadn't expected any to abstain, for they were all in danger of their lives meeting like this, and he had chosen the people he wanted to lead away to start a new village carefully. This Lord of Cerros was nothing like the previous king, and the attempts of coercion and intimidation, bullying, would not make them obey him, even at the pain of death. Cal offered a comment. At least, by leaving at the new moon, we'll have time to build houses before it will be necessary to start clearing the fields. The rains should be over just after the full moon, and the cold weather from the northers finish. I'm not so sure of that, Cole replied. Still, it will give us 3 or 4 weeks to clear the land and do the burning before we have to plant. We better do some irrigation ditches and raise some ridges for planting too, because I hear the land is swampy and flat and might flood, Paul offered. There was a little more conversation about how they were going to carry enough food, seeds and things, and making of hidden food caches a few miles away, that they could perhaps sneak back to get food if necessary. They all knew there would be plenty of fish, lobster and crab to eat. It was just the maize and other plants that would be a problem for a few months. They also knew other groups around Cerros were planning similar moves, but it wasn't safe to talk to anyone outside the family, and everyone present was connected by marriage or blood in some way. Now, there ends the story of the conspirators, and we'll take it back up some 20 years later at another important point of the history of Belize and the Mayan people. So, as we see, kings or royalty can only rule if they have enough people to bully and people around them who will who they can subjugate into labor to grow food and stuff for them. But eventually, throughout history, has shown us that the people either rise up and fight against their oppressors or just run away in the dead of the night. So, thank you once again for joining me, and if you like what you hear, you like to hear more of the Mayan people of Mesoamerica, please hit the subscribe button.